So if you'd have asked me 5 hours ago what I was going to do this evening, meeting Princess Anne, the Queen's daughter, would not have been at the top of my list. But that just happened. Okay, so here's the story. Luke at work tells me that there's this food lecture on in London this evening at the Guildhall, and I've got to go. It's going to be about the future of food, and he was selling it really hard to me. So I said, okay, fine, dude, I'll go to it. It sounds really interesting. It did sound kind of interesting. Now let me tell you about the Guildhall. It's basically this Harry Potter-esque, grand, opulent banqueting hall fit for royalty, which is fairly appropriate given that royalty do actually have banquets there. So automatically I'm thinking I'm probably going to be slightly underdressed for this event, but to be fair, on the invitation it did say business attire. I figured, well, this is pretty much my business attire, so maybe I can get away with it. Big mistake. I turn up to the Guildhall and there is a sea of grey pinstripe suits there, 600 of them in fact, and me. So at this point I figure I've got to bite the bullet, I've got to go into it, and this is going to be a pretty interesting experience, so off I go. The dignitaries file into this grand banqueting hall, including Princess Anne, the Princess Royal. I also file in, but sit myself at the back, and the lecture begins. And it's an interesting lecture, probably more interesting for the fact that at least 3 occasions during the lecture, the guy puts a picture of HelloFresh up on this massive projector screen behind him and talks about how we are part of this movement to change the way people are going to eat in the future, which was pretty mind-blowing. So I got to thinking, you know what? There are some really seriously interesting people from the food industry in this room, the kind of people I really, really like to talk to, like real opinion formers. But of course, how do you speak to the right people in that room? How do you even kind of like make yourself known there? Well, one thing not to do is make yourself known for the wrong reasons, but there's always going to be an opportunity to kind of push yourself to the fore. Now, at the end of the lecture, the guy says, does anyone have a question? And of course, I had a question. Now, it can be kind of intimidating putting your hand up and asking a question in front of a room of that many people, but I tell you what, here's a tip for you. If you put your hand up quick enough so that you don't even have time to talk yourself out of answering that question, then the guy's going to come over, give you the microphone, and you won't even have a choice. That's exactly what I did. And I asked my question, which is about food waste, which is something that I'm really interested in. It's something that's like a key part of what we do at HelloFresh, preventing food waste in the supply chain. And that was done. And then afterwards, we go into the reception room to have drinks. Now, I walk into the reception room, and this lady walks up to me, and she says, "Are you Patrick Drake?" And I said, "Yeah." And I figured this woman has totally come over to say, "Well, Patrick, it's lovely to meet you, but actually there is a dress code here, and I'm afraid you're going to have to leave." But instead of saying that, she said, "Patrick, the Princess Royal would like to meet you." And I'm like, really? Anyway, I walk over to meet her, and she is an absolutely fascinating lady. So fascinating, in fact, she actually gave a speech after the keynote speaker, and she is so clued up on what's going on in the food industry, and she knew everything about HelloFresh. She was totally into it, and she even said, you know what, I think that my son could probably do with using a bit of HelloFresh to learn a few tricks in the kitchen, to which I, of course, said, don't worry, I can totally hook him up with a box. And the irony of this entire situation is I walked into this event looking like the most out of place person there, and at the end of the conversation, Princess Anne says to me, would you like to give the lecture next year? To which I hesitated and said, well, yeah, but I need to do some preparation. To which she said, well, you've got 12 months to prepare. Now, why am I even talking about all of this? Please do not think that this is some self-indulgent vlog where I just want to tell you about guess who I met this evening, because it really isn't that. I just thought this was too funny not to talk about. And I suppose if I was going to find some takeaways from this, because then I can kind of justify the video and give a little bit of education on my experience, something that I learned from it, I would say, well, firstly, don't feel like you need to conform. You don't have to look a certain way, and you don't have to wear a suit in order to be able to stand up in a room of influential people and have an opinion and talk and be someone who can influence those people yourself. So don't think that you have to conform to some kind of stereotype or wear some kind of uniform to say what you need to say. And I guess if I had one other point to make, it would be to put your hand up. Seriously, take my advice. If you need to speak to somebody or a group of people and you're nervous about it, start walking towards that group of people, put your hand up before you even have a chance to talk yourself out of it. And by the time you know it, you're going to have that microphone in your hand, or you'll be standing in front of that group of people, and you'll literally have no choice. You'll absolutely have to do it. Anyway, enough from me. I'm done for the night. I will see you later.